Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Well, I think there's a huge benefit just going through it a second time. You know, OTAs and mini camp and training camp were all the first time for him last year. So when you can go now through a second time, you know what's coming. I think it helps you just simplify, you know, what you're having to focus on. And you also know defense is better. You know the speed of the game better. So that's that natural growth that takes place as you go through the league.
And welcome into Purple Access. That's Kirk Cousins talking about Kellen Mond and his development, which we will talk about. It is Zolgad, it is Star Tribune columnist, and my good friend Chip Scoggins, who I used to be a part of the Vikings beat coverage at the Strib with, and of course Declan Goff, who is the executive producer extraordinaire, making everything work on this fine show, because old guys like Chip and I have no idea how this works. All right, Chipper, I believe by my count we are now 8 practices in. We are 2 padded practices. I've seen you out at TCO Performance Center at least twice, if not 3 times. I would just like to start with this. What are your earliest takeaways from what you've seen so far at training camp?
Yeah, I was out there for was it the first padded practice? Was that Monday?
Monday.
I thought it was pretty sloppy. Saw a lot
Yesterday
of balls
didn't improve.
Saw a lot of balls on the ground there, Judley.
Yeah, we did.
Between the quarterbacks.
We saw that Wednesday too. The second team, Mond, Mannion, the centers, and the ball on the ground has become a reoccurrent theme. In fact, at Tuesday's practice, Chipper, when the running backs were doing drills that were to avoid fumbling, because as PJ Fleck says, the ball is the program, the running backs coach said we had, and so just talking about that one position group, on Monday, we had 3 balls on the ground. That is not good. And I don't care if it is an early practice, a mid-season practice. The football cannot be on the turf.
Yeah, no, and we saw some quarterback issues. We saw, I think there was a tight end. Was it Davidson got stripped at the end of a run, catch and run. So
he fumbled one on Wednesday as well.
Yeah, so that jumped out at me. I think Cousins has been pretty good for the most part. We've seen some nice throws. We've seen, I think, 3 interceptions so far in team drills. Booth had one the first day. Kendricks made a really nice play. On the first day of padded practice, I tend to say that was just a really good play by a great player, more than something Cousins did wrong. I can't remember the third one, but he came back at the end. I thought the offense looked rusty and just kind of out of sorts there. That the early part of the first padded practice, but I thought at the end when they ran the 2-minute offense, Kirk looked really good. He had a couple nice throws, and you can just tell his chemistry that he has that day, in particular with Thielen. I mean, you just see it time and time again where he throws him open to a spot and Thielen goes and gets it. And so it's been kind of a mixed bag, I think, so far. I haven't been out there every day, but the days I've been, I think kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah, and so they were in shorts and shells on Tuesday when it was incredibly hot and humid. They came back for a full padded practice on Wednesday, and I saw the same thing. Too sloppy. It's too sloppy. Now you do have to separate the first team, what they're doing, from the second and third. But I mean, if you're O'Connell, you basically want a crisp practice in which all 3 teams, and especially the first 2, because those are the 2 that are going to play the most, look good, look on point. The second team does not. I want to get your thoughts on the quarterbacks. Because, Kirk is going to start, but the most dangerous thing that Kwesi, O'Connell, and the entire staff could say is, well, Kirk doesn't get hurt, so we're fine, because as soon as you say that, he gets hurt. The more I watch Mond, Chipper, and I can't chalk this up completely to being a new system. There is an indecisiveness about his reads and his ability to process plays that scares me. And Mannion is Mannion. He's not going to change. And I said this to Phil and Dex before, but it's my belief that at some point in time, because there's expectations for this team in 2022, at some point in time, if this continues, I think you might have to at least take a look at getting what you would consider to be a more capable backup QB.
Yeah, a more true guy that you would feel comfortable with if you had to play 2 or 3 games with, because either one of those guys I wouldn't be comfortable with. And we can say this. Obviously, every team can say if you lose your starter, you're in trouble for a long time. But I agree with you on both parts. On Mond, there does seem to be some indecisiveness. We've seen the ball handling issues and ball security issues that have popped up. I mean, that's got to be frustrating for the coaches to have that happen. I mean, I got to imagine they're giving him every opportunity available to win that job, because you want him to be your backup over Mannion, right? I mean, and I just, the previous regime did it too, Judd. I mean, they rolled the dice and just said, well, Kirk never gets hurt. And it's just like, yes, his resume says he doesn't, but you have to have a plan B at every position.
It can't be Sean Hill.
No. And but in saying that,
mm-hmm.
Are you going to go through a full training camp with 2 guys and then say, okay, neither one of them is going to work, so now we're going to have to go get another guy that doesn't know the system? And I mean, how does that? I don't know. I know. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm trying to think of it logically and practically. Is that even an option right now?
Well,
is there a Case Keenum out there that in that kind of mold? I don't know.
Nick Foles?
Yeah.
I just don't see how you have expectations and then don't have a plan. I mean, they right now do not have a backup quarterback who can play.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Is like, can you get by for a game? Yeah, you can get by with a game but
you'll lose.
Yeah, I mean, you can try to win 13-10.
But I mean, that Green Bay game was indicative of what's going to happen if Sean Mannion starts.
Yeah, I guess it depends on who you're playing, but
right.
But if you said, okay, Kirk's down for a month, now you panic, like, because that could just submarine your entire season. I don't know. I guess you just keep coaching Mond hard and hope that it starts to click and he becomes more comfortable. But I'm just thinking the season opener is not that far away.
Correct. And there's only 3 exhibition games now, and you're not. I mean, you can work him hard, but Chip, they're going to have, they are 2 padded practices, full pads, into 11. So O'Connell, like you're allowed 16. O'Connell said, no, I don't want to work my team that hard. I'm going to go 11. So like the ability for the ramp up that you're talking about, it certainly does not exist as it used to. And that's why I just think at some point, I mean, Mond, I think part of the problem with the missed exchanges, part of them, because it's on both guys, but I think part of Mond's problem is he's trying to think through the play before it happens.
That's why I think that's as much mentally as it is physically.
Yep.
With in those cases where he's probably thinking, got a million things going on. I have to imagine of these 3 preseason games, I don't know if Cousins will play at all. You need Mond playing 3/4 of each game, right? Because
that's what I would do.
Like Mannion's like, okay, you know what you got. It's not like he's trying to develop into something. You know what you have. He's a veteran backup.
Right.
With Mond, I think he needs as much game experience, even if it's preseason, much game experience as he can get. And then you make a decision. But I don't disagree with your premise. I'm just wondering how that would. Again, how practical that is to bring someone in at the last second, and you say, "Well, we try to give 2 guys ready. We don't trust either one, so we're going to go outside and bring someone in at the 11th hour."
It's not perfect, but I just don't see. I don't see how you have expectations, and then basically say, "Okay, Sean Mannion is our backup." When to your point, you know exactly what you would get. And if Kellen Mond started a game today, a real game, I think he'd be sacked 15 times. And it's not the offensive line's fault.
Yeah, because holding the ball and then decide. And
the ball, trying to take off,
Well, we do know this. Saying Kirk Cousins never gets hurt is not a plan.
Correct.
I mean, that's not.
It's a prayer.
Yeah, I mean, it's you've been fortunate. Yeah, you've been fortunate that he hasn't, but that's not a plan. Mm-hmm. And we've heard throughout that this team is in win now mode. I mean, the owner made that clear again recently that the roster is built to win now. And you look at it and they feel like they're going to compete. And so you can't leave that position. I know people say, "Oh, you're worried about the backup quarterback." Well,
yes.
Yeah,
I did in 2016 too, and Teddy Bridgewater's leg snapped.
Yeah.
Which I didn't see coming.
Yeah. So it's something you have to prepare for sure.
Okay, so that's a backup job. Now let's move to the nitty-gritty of the importance of a starting job, of which I think there should be great concern. 2 padded practices in, and you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The center position. Bradbury was pushed around by Harrison Phillips, who, by the way, I think is a good defensive tackle, but there's a lot of great ones and there are a lot of defensive tackles the Vikings who are going to face who are probably certainly a step up, if not 2 steps up from Phillips. Now, not so coincidentally, after having Chris Reed, who is a backup center guard at guard through training camp on Monday in full pads, Tuesday, Reed replaced Austin Schlottman as the backup center. And in full pads on Wednesday, Reed was back as the backup center as well. So clearly they're starting to quietly take a look at options here. But if you want to say, Chip Scoggins, that saying Cousins does not get hurt is not a plan for the quarterback job, I think a discussion that should have started, it probably started Monday, but it should have been a urgent discussion by last night. Garrett Bradbury simply gaining a few pounds is not going to change him. Again, sample size. What do you do there?
Well, that's the thing. It's like we say they should address this, in February, March, whenever these guys came in, and it almost like they just said, we're not going to have any real competition there. It's his job. I don't understand how he earned that kind of trust to where you didn't bring in a veteran to compete with him. The issues that he had, I don't think were going to be solved by adding he added 10 pounds, 15 pounds. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
yeah, something like that.
I mean, we've seen for a number of years that he is vulnerable to big, strong nose tackles that bull rush him and push him back into Kirk Cousins. And I don't know how they thought that was going to change, whether they just felt like their scheme or coaching, or they could find something that was going to, I never bought that. And you're right. Andrew Kramer from our paper said that, Harrison Phillips has really kind of dominated him in the padded practices, in the one-on-ones. And so I think it behooves them to give Reed an opportunity over there to see. I would just move him there full time, because Jesse Davis is going to be your starter at right guard. He's getting most of the reps, so he's going to be the starter.
Yep.
I think I would have a full out, open competition at center right now to see if Reed's better than him.
I think you have to. Now here's my problem though. To backtrack on what you said, the logic of coming in and saying Kirk Cousins is our guy, damn it, and we're going to surround him with the best possible game plans, schemes, players. Whether I agree that Kirk should be here or not, you sort of, you basically are doing a lot of good things. So why on God's green earth would you watch film of Bradbury? Like, if Bradbury continues to be Bradbury, that is a huge detriment to Kirk. Like, enormous.
Correct. Yeah.
And also, here's what gets me. If you decide, you know what? Okay, we screwed up. Bradbury is not our guy. Center is a position that you just don't bring in a guy for week 1 and say, all right, go start there. It's a thinking man's job. It takes,
protections, the line protections you have to
exactly. Make. So like, I don't understand. This is one of the things that they've done, and there's not a lot, but this is one of the things they've done that I'm trying to figure out, and I don't get it.
Well, it's not like you have Steve Hutchinson sitting next to him to cover up and help him too. I mean, Cleveland's shown, some promise, and Jesse Davis is a veteran. He might be fine there, but it's not like you have an all-pro guard that can say, you know what, he's sitting next to a guy who will help him. So, but you're right. I mean, that position is so important in terms of setting the protection and making the calls at the line. It's like, if you do decide, okay, I think this is not going to work, well, are you going to bring a guy in off the street who gets cut somewhere else and say,
right.
I haven't never played a position. I don't know how hard that is to pick up, but I can't imagine it's something you do in a day or a week. And so, maybe they switch to Reed, but we can't say that this is something that snuck up on him. I mean, if they did any kind of evaluation of this line and saw what happened last year in the last few years, they knew that this was an issue. And so to not address it in a meaningful way this offseason, I just never understood.
Right, exactly. On the good news front, it's early. I know that, but I like what I see from the defense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it feels like they're swarming more. It feels like it feels with guys like Smith now there, Zadarius Smith, and Hunter back. It feels like this defense, and it's going to be so multiple. Like we're going to call it base 3-4, but it's really not. It's a lot of different things. I could see that. I could see this first team group taking a pretty quick step up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you get, you had Zadarius Smith, but then you get Danielle Hunter back, that automatically makes your defense better. I mean, the drop off from Hunter to their backup is, it's like anybody. You have a star player and you go to backup, it's not going to be the same. And I would think that helped. I still have questions about the secondary. I mean, the day I was out there, Cousins and Thielen and his receivers made some plays against Dantzler, and maybe that's still going to happen because he's still a young corner.
Right.
But there was one where he just lofted it over him. He couldn't get to it.
I think he tweaked his leg as well that day.
Yeah. And it might be the first day of pads. It was hot. I mean,
he was slowed down. Yeah. Cramping or something like that.
Yes. It was in that 2-minute situation. They were going
towards the end
quite a bit. So it might've been, but you have to work through that. But
right.
And I still have some questions about this, their corner spot, their depth there. I like their linebackers. Obviously I think their lines, want them. They have some depth on that defensive line. And so I think it's going to be better. Obviously, it can't be much worse than they were last year. But I mean, getting to Neal and the different creative things they're doing with him and Zadarius Smith, I think it's just they just seem like they have more options to attack an offense now versus what they had. And part of that was they were playing guys that probably shouldn't have been on the field, a lot of backups. But I do like the way they're using Daniil and Zadarius. And so, I mean, there's a lot to like about what they're doing right now. I mean, between skill, not crazy about Irv Smith missing the rest of training camp. That he needs the reps, and I know it's early, so you can't really say he's having this type of camp or that type of camp. But I didn't really notice him a lot in the team stuff yet. I
didn't either. No,
that's not a judgment one way or the other because I think he's a really nice talent, but. For a guy coming off an injury, missed a whole year, it's I'm sure for him it's frustrating to miss these kind of reps. But we'll see if I think they're still hopeful he'll be there for the Packers game, right? I mean,
yeah, I don't see it though.
There's got to be a conditioning component to this that you're going to need, right?
Well, and you're going to miss a ton of pretty valuable time.
Yeah,
like it's an installation of an entire new system that should ideally involve you. Like if he was just going to come back and block, like Munt might or something like that, I'd be like, oh, okay. But I mean, he is, I think, expected to be a fairly significant part at times of a pass game, and he is now going to miss at least the rest, all 3 preseason games and the rest of the practice time in training camp.
And I do think the reps with Cousins in practice. Not having those will hurt because these are new routes, new things they're asking him to do. It's a feel thing as much as anything. Like Cousins knowing how he likes to run it, and so to not have that doesn't mean he can't play. But it also it's a setback. I mean, there's no other way to say it. I still think he can have a good year, but it's off to a tough start for him again, which is frustrating for him.
Yes, absolutely. One thing that, and it's not a surprise, but it's worth talking about because it's special, is one of the joys, and there's not a lot, like there's a lot of training camp stuff that's just absolute, it's hot. It's not, it's certainly not spring training, right? Yeah. But one of the joys to me is watching an athlete and a guy who goes about his preparation like Justin Jefferson does. Yeah. I likened it on a show earlier today to being like a craftsman. Like he is working on his craft. And here's the one thing that I really, really like. And I don't think that this is true across the board of a ton of players. In his world, it feels like every snap has a purpose.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can see just even like in individuals, a lot of times training camp's just not fun for players. I mean, let's be honest, they probably hate it, it's hot. You're back beating each other up. Your body feels like, you're already getting pounded on. But even like individuals, he has like joy. Like, Dancy's trying to get better. He's jawing with guys. You can see his competitive nature out there. That first practice, him and Booth, the rookie, were getting into it pretty good. But I just think, you see it in certain athletes. We used to see it in Peterson, like
yes.
that exuberance because they're so good and they want to be great.
Yep.
And like this has not worked to them because it's stuff that's making them, like Justin working on weaknesses or
right.
honing his craft that he loves being out there because he's trying to be great. And so you see, like we've seen it in certain athletes. I think you see it in Anthony Edwards in basketball. Like the hard part's not hard to them because they love it. You know what I'm saying? They
right.
want to be great. So no, he's fun to watch. I mean, if you just went to a practice, just follow him, train your eyes on him and follow him around because you're going to see a guy who loves doing what he's doing.
Now, as far as that spot goes too, Chipper, it feels like it is Jefferson for sure, Thielen, Osborne. I think any real significant wide receiver competition on the depth chart starts at the fourth guy, right? Osborne seems locked in, and he's been really good.
Yeah, I think he's your third best wide receiver to me. I mean, when you watch him, I think he's for sure your three. Then you get, BC Johnson, Naylor, the rookie, and then who else comes?
Amir Smith-Marset,
Smith,
who might be four right now.
He might be four. Yeah. I mean, it's so hard to know when they, they're running in and out. But I think if you say who's your third, I think to me at least it has to be Osborne right now.
Andrew Booth Jr., who you broached, who got into it with across the field. But he tried to. I think he tried to. So he tried to fight or at least get into a pushing match with BC. Is that right? On Monday? And was John with Jefferson?
Him and Jefferson were John back and forth, but they were in offside fields. And then Booth went over to the other side. And I think it was BC may have caught a pass. I can't remember if it was a breakup or he caught a pass. And they sort of had to be separated. I kind of like Booth's confidence. I mean, you have to have that at that position. You can't be shy. You can't be, totally out of control where you're going to have a bunch of penalties. But I like his confidence. I mean, clearly he's talented. I mean, when you watch like that interception he had, the first day against Cousins, that was a really nice play. And his whole thing was he had the injury history, right, in college.
Mm-hmm.
But he's, I don't know if he takes Dantzler's spot, for the opener, but I think he's going to play a lot. I mean, he definitely looks like he's going to be a player for him.
He's got a brashness to what you're saying that I absolutely love, assuming he can back it up. So because I'm with you. Now, there's nothing worse than a brash corner who's not good. Rashad Breeland.
Yeah.
But if you could
after one play and then gives
and he celebrates and then every time he gets beat, he's like throwing up his hands like I got pushed off on or something like that. But I will say, if Booth is as good as has been advertised by those who I think said without the injuries, he's probably a first-round pick. I love the confidence, and that's a fine line to walk, too, because you can look like an idiot. But to go back to your point about the secondary and I guess the cornerback position in particular, early on, I think it's in slightly better shape than I initially probably thought.
Yeah.
And these guys are going up, and this is the nice thing. First team, you're going up against some receiving talent that is top shelf.
Well, that's it. I mean, we talk about Booth is like, you're going up against one of the best receivers in pro football. You're going up against, Adam Thielen, I think he's having a really good start to his camp. I mean, he's just so good at body control and getting open, making tough catches. I haven't seen enough of Sullivan in the slot yet. I haven't really focused on him to see kind of how that's going, but it hasn't stood out as bad. I mean, he's a veteran, he's done it. So I guess that one's kind of more, let's see more, you feel good about where they're at there. I think, I don't know.
The slot's a tough one too, because it's such a specialized position. And so the problem is this, if Sullivan struggles, I don't even know who you asked to take that job, because you cannot, as we have learned in this town with certain guys like what was his name, Josh Robinson. You can't just take like Booth if he's not played the slot previously and be like, okay, kid, play here. That is one of the most specialized positions that exists in football.
Can you get Winfield back?
Oh God! And by the way,
he was made for that position, right?
And by the way, Vikings, if you're watching this, Ring of Honor next year, Antoine Winfield.
Yeah, I mean,
he deserves it.
It was it when Winfield was here that they were thinking about making that position a Pro Bowl position, the nickel slot? I think
Winfield politic for it.
Yeah, but it is because it's so
different.
The demands and the requirements are so different than being on the outside. And he was such a great. I mean, he was built for that position. Tackle,
100%.
Physical, the way he could diagnose everything. He was just perfect for it. So yeah, I don't know if Sullivan's not the guy. I don't know who would even be the backup there. But I be honest with you, I just haven't watched him enough in camp yet to see how things are going there. But I assume he's doing fine. He's a veteran who's played it. I mean, that's kind of his position. So yeah, it's probably better, at least right now, than that was like, to me, the number one concern with this team going in was like,
oh, absolutely, yeah.
You
center to me.
Yeah, well, yeah, probably 1 and 1A, but this is under the assumption that Dantzler is ready to be, a really good, or a guy who's going to play the entire game or a lot of snaps. So I don't know. I guess it's to be determined still.
I also think that we're going to see, and they're not showing this in front of fans, but I'm not surprised. I think that they are designing packages that are going to involve Scene, Bynum, and Harrison Smith all on the field together. And Scene will take the place of a linebacker, but he's essentially built like one. Yeah.
Well, there's not much difference in his size. We're talking 20 pounds maybe.
Maybe.
And I mean, you look at the rookie linebacker from Oklahoma, that Asamoah, that everybody's privately hear people that like they really love that kid and the way he can run. He looks like a safety.
Yes, he does.
He does. And Scene's a big safety, and I'm excited to see kind of hit more of him in pads and see that. I want to see him in games where he's really flying ball and flying around, and you can see the physical part of his game come out.
3 flags minimum, personal fouls. 3.
He's got to get
potential ejection too. He's going to try and behead somebody.
Yeah, that first game, I would, if you're a wide receiver, you're probably going to come across the field. He's probably going to want to get it out of his system.
Alan Lazard might want to keep his head up.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see him in game action too. I mean, a lot of these guys, you just want to see, even though it's preseason, you want to see tackling. We're just seeing thud right now. You're not seeing the actual tackling and stuff. So yeah.
Yep. In fact, Chip, I saw, towards the end of practice on Wednesday, I saw a defender made a nice play to break up the pass on the sideline. I think it was like second or third team stuff. Might have been third team. And he was wearing 31. And so I'm like, oh, that's a nice play. Who's that cornerback? And I looked at my roster. It was a linebacker. Like, that's how much I can't. This to me is one of the most interesting things in this sport.
Yeah.
Forget like just positionless. The position is lit. I mean, have you ever seen and I don't want to call them small because that's not fair. But I guess undersized linebackers in your life?
Yeah, no, it's just, and I don't even know if we call them undersized anymore because that's just what they are. The game's changed. It's like undersized.
What's the term?
New age. There's a new age linebacker.
I am a new linebacker.
That's right, because I mean, when you look at Asamoah, you're like, in the old days, he'd be a safety for sure at that side, and now he's a linebacker that can run side to side, and because teams just want to stretch the field not only this way but side to side too, and you have to be able to run. And so now it is a lot of times you see when you look out there and you're not really looking at numbers and all that, it's a lot of the same body types.
Yes,
they want length and they want guys that can run, and so it is sometimes when you see them there, it's like, is that a linebacker or is that a safety? It's hard to, they're almost indistinguishable anymore.
Exactly. All right, sir. We'll catch up. I think we're going to switch to Wednesdays starting next week, but Purple Access will live, of course, as Viking season approaches. And I think we'll have a preseason game preview to talk about next week. If I'm not mistaken, they're finally going to play a game. Thanks, Chipper. Talk to you later.
All right, brother.
All right, bye-bye.